Hey guys, John here today, joined by Alan Kay, who, over the last couple of weeks, right after or as Hurricane Florence was going through, was in North Carolina for some work, and so I just thought we'd take a couple minutes, ask a couple questions, and just kind of get his, bird's eye view, kind of what you saw there while you were there. Because every situation is a little bit different,
Yep.
and so if you don't know, Alan was also in Puerto Rico after the hurricane hit there. So kind of compare the two. What was the difference? Kind of just little things like that. So, I mean, what did you see on the ground? Because, well, let's just face it, the news is the news, and it's not really the truth as memes are showing right now. So
they were.
Water levels do change based on how the picture is
like
taken.
if you get on your knees to take the picture.
Yeah,
I mean, there was flooding, to be sure.
Yeah.
There was some real weather in there. So we were staged before the storm and put in place and just kind of on what the projected edge would be.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of hanging out on the edges of it, and then once everything the worst had hit, then we moved to our positions where we were to do our work. And to get where I needed to be, which is ultimately in South Carolina, we went through, we saw some flooding, we saw trees down, power lines down, that sort of thing. And when we first got there, we started getting some water together for our teams and food and things like that. And we went into one of the local Walmarts, and it was just
ransacked,
stripped pretty well bare. We got like the last of the water. All of your cheaper, more like store brand was gone.
Yeah.
And all that was really left for us was like
Fiji,
Voss and Fiji and the higher end stuff. There was just a little bit of that left. And so we got it because it's what we needed. I brought jerry cans with me empty and filled them from a tap en route so that I would have several gallons in my vehicle. I also had enough rations for a projected amount of time of weeks. So luckily the storm wasn't as bad as initially projected. When it made landfall, it kind of slowed down. But the bad part was it was moving at like 2 miles an hour. So it just sat there. It was like living in a washing machine. It just kept coming. And you could see the bands, like there would be total stillness, everything tranquil. And then the wind would accelerate. It would get really hard. And then the rain would come, and it would just be coming in sheets. And that band would pass through, and it would repeat. And it just sat there and churned, and it dropped so much water that some of the biggest issues were localized flooding. Some communities were isolated, and the only way to get to them was through air assets or some type of a watercraft. So the flooding was a big deal, especially along the Cape River. There was some flooding there. But then after I moved through all of that and got down into South Carolina, it wasn't as bad in that area. There were 2 areas nearby that were kind of subjected to some flooding. But other than that, basically what I saw, it was not as bad as we were initially thinking it would be. It was still plenty bad.
Right.
And it's going to be bad for a while for some folks. It's going to be an ongoing tragedy. Their homes are pretty messed up just from the water damage. Once you've got standing water in your house, that changes your whole life. Because now in the aftermath of that, you basically have to redo it. In some cases, it's almost like, gosh, what do we do? Just bulldoze this thing because of all the mildew and
mold.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, drywall, everything.
Yeah, it's got to be redone. But one of the takeaways, like when we went in and got our water, somebody sent me a video. One of the other teams in the area that was from the same Walmart we were at just a few hours prior, of people in there getting kind of edgy with each other because there was nothing there, and what few things were there, you were starting to see this acceleration of tension and all of that. And it's like you see that pattern repeat every time there's a disaster, which in my mind, it makes me always think, it's kind of like I have the epiphany, most of America just is not ready. They have not prepared themselves with the basics. Go ahead and have that evacuation route planned. Have some rally point where you're going to be, where your family is going to meet up. Go ahead and have the extra water, have the extra fuel, and the more people that are out there on game day trying to get this stuff, it just really adds to the problem. And if they tell you you should probably leave town. You should probably leave town.
Right.
Because you can get a new house, you can get new furniture, but you can't get a new head, if something happens and a tree lands on you. So, I mean, I get it. Some people don't want to leave their house, but I really wish everybody would leave, because then, if you stay behind, not only are you at risk, but now somebody's got to come help you. And they're going to put themselves at risk. And so
they're going to do it too.
Yeah.
The good men are going to do it also.
Going to. When they call us, we go, and especially I'll tell you who I always have respect for. I've worked a few storms, are the linemen.
Yeah.
You see this gnarly weather, and they've got a point at which they can't operate over so many miles per hour of wind gust. But you see them up there in the wind snapping around, and they're just out there doing it. And none of us sleep. That's the one thing too. I will say, sleep deprivation is something that maybe we don't think about, but it really has an effect on you. After a few days of not sleeping or just catching like a little 30-minute or 1-hour nap, by day 4 or 5, depending on how old you are and how used to that type of thing you are, you actually start to hallucinate and stuff. It's like you're walking around like a zombie. So sleep deprivation definitely will affect you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, with regards to your Walmart story, when Hurricane Irma came through Florida last year, my wife and I, we were set, and it was like a day or so out from Florida, and we live pretty inland. We don't get much bad weather where I live, and it was funny because my wife was like, I just want some ice cream. I was like, no problem. So I ran down to Publix, our grocery store, and I mean, it was the bread aisle, the water aisle, the milk aisle. It was just empty. I mean, beyond empty. And the ice cream aisle, that wasn't touched, So I got a carton of ice cream, and kind of went up to the front, and man, the young girl cash register, she's super nice. She just looked at me and she was like, "Is that all you need? Is that like?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's all I need." And her next phrase was, "There's a hurricane coming, right?
You have seen the news, right?
You haven't been in a hole for the last week, and it was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, I'm like, it's good. But she had been there all day and had seen the repetition of person after person not having anything as far as supplies, ready to go.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that, because she just looked at me like she was dumbfounded by the fact that somebody actually had stuff at home, So yeah, I mean, make sure you always have your provisions, well ahead of time.
We always see the good and bad, in any storm. You always hear reports. There's looting going on. There's this, there's that. But then we always see a lot of people coming together, which is what we saw more of this storm. People just coming together, helping each other, getting through it. The only looting that I was aware of was north in, I believe it was Wilmington. There was a Family Dollar there that got looted pretty good. But other than that, it was really chill. Everybody was just helping out. I saw people there from all over the country. I saw people from Miami-Dade coming up. I saw their trucks in a convoy, search and rescue teams. And it'll be ongoing. They'll be working there for a while. It's one of those things that always makes me think, when it's a localized event like that, and all the resources are that stretched, what if it were a nationwide event?
Right.
Then you're really going to see shortage. So, I mean, it behooves us all to have some buffer room built into our lives to where we have some extra provisions, and we're not living hand to mouth exactly.
And I mean, one thing that I saw kind of again and again in pictures was roadways and bridges and stuff being washed away. Like where I live, we don't really have any bridges. We don't have a ton of waterways that we have to cross. But one of the bad things about Florida, there's pretty much only one way in and out, and that's I-75. And it's a huge issue. I mean, the road was built, 60 years ago. The population of the state has grown by, it's like 200 and some odd times, yet the same road is supposed to get everybody in and out in case of a evacuation need. what I saw in North Carolina was, try not to ever find yourself in a situation where you wait and you wait and you wait, and then you're stuck
Yeah.
because a bridge has now been washed. And that's your only way across that water.
It
is that
happened when we
bridge.
were moving from our staging area to South Carolina. We had to redirect 3 times, because it was a very fluid situation. It's like 1 minute, okay, this route's okay, and then we're talking to DOT, and they're like, actually, no, you guys have to go this way. And so what would have been just a little short trip ended up being this epic journey through back roads and getting around all this stuff. Yeah, it's a real thing, and it changes rapidly. That's the other thing is, being able to monitor what's going on, being able to get weather reports, or having some type of infrastructure for the movement of information and communication is really important, because things change pretty rapidly.
And let's talk about that for just a second. As far as communication, how were cell phones and stuff during
Cell
this
phones in this one were great.
Okay.
Our guys we had a little WhatsApp thread amongst ourselves where we could talk, and we would text each other and stuff, and all of that, and it was up and worked pretty well. Now in Puerto Rico, no, like all the cell phone towers were damaged. Of course, you really can't compare Puerto Rico to anything. That's like one of the worst storms ever. Yeah. And they're still recovering and will be for some time. But yeah, the cell phone situation in Puerto Rico was not good. That was a problem.
And that's where, I know they can be expensive. Satellite phones can make a huge difference there.
We had sat phones.
As long as you can get through.
Yeah.
Clouds can play an issue at times.
Yeah.
But definitely after the storm leaves, or through bands, where you can get a clear sky, be able to get a signal out. I've been using a Garmin Mini InReach Mini, which will allow you to text message
I've used
from
those.
your phone through the device, through satellites. That work really well. If you're thinking of, hey, what are other options besides cell phones? Landlines tend to work, even though nobody really has a landline anymore.
Yeah, I think they're kind of going away.
I see people all the time like, I keep a corded phone, and I'm like, but who are you going to call? You're the only one that has a corded phone left.
Yeah. I've used sat phones. We normally have those as a backup option, and I've had mixed results.
Yeah.
They're kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they're awesome and they'll work, and other times they're kind of
never work like the movie. Like in the movies, the guy pulls them out inside, and it's like boop, just like that.
No, it takes a minute for it to link up, and then usually you have to stand on one foot, face east and stuff. But they have helped at times, but it's hit or miss. Yeah, ideally with anything, you want 3 ways to do it. A primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. And what was funny down there, we were trying to communicate with another team, and we were talking and referring to the map in our conversation, but they needed, for what we were doing, they needed visual contact with us, and we resorted to the old school signal panel on a palm frond and signal fire method, and they actually spotted us through their binos that way, and they're like, okay, yeah, we got you now. So sometimes even that old school low tech stuff will win the day, even when you have digital communications. Still have panels and mirrors and whistles and all that stuff in your kit. It's important to be able to communicate that way.
Well, anything else you want to add to it that you kind of saw, noticed, examined?
No, that's about it. I'm glad it wasn't like a Cat 5, and we kind of in a way dodged a bullet. I mean, not to downplay what did happen. People are going through it even now.
But it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I'm really glad it didn't hit as strong as they thought it would have been.
So guys, that's a little bit, that's it. If you guys got any questions or comments, anything you'd like to ask Alan, feel free to comment below. It was just we kind of wanted to just do a quick after action report, because you have somebody that was actually there, not standing in a hole like Anderson Cooper. So,
I was high and dry the whole time.
So just kind of wanted to pull Alan aside for just a few minutes and let him just kind of share what he saw, because there's so many stories out there.
And that's just one perspective from one area, because once I was posted to the spot, I basically stayed there doing what I was doing, and I didn't move a lot from there. So I'm sure there was tons of stuff going on in other areas that I didn't see, but that's just what I saw in my movement and from my perspective.
So guys, as always, stay prepared and stay safe. Have a great one.